Then so we move into the Tut 3. What we are going to discuss today, the third area, that is evaluate the influence of key internal and external factors on an organization strategy, corporate appraisal, and Portland 5 forces model. And I want to tell you to students who are not today and may join with the recorded version, the assignment this year, I mean, for the subject for your exam assignment is going to be on my area. So I will tell you, I will send you a topic, what is the area and what are the things covered under my assignment, right? So my assignment, I will send you a detail. So for that you will get 10% in addition to your exam paper, right? So the assignment in strategic management, right? Okay, now let's look at it. What are we going to discuss today? Right, we are going to discuss about the strategic analysis. Now, analysis part, we answering the question basically about the find out what is your current position of the business in the marketplace. What is your current positions of the business in the marketplace, right? So that is your, where are you now? Right now we in the strategic management issue. So we have two things to, where are we now, where are you going to be, and how to be there, right? So we discussed last week basically where do we want to be, and the first day we discussed about the importance and what is strategic planning and so on. Now the third day we are going to discuss with you where are you now, so that we are trying to answer to that questions. Okay, right. Now before we answering to that question, managers' perceptions of uncertainty will be increased by two factors. Now you know that why we need to plan. We need to plan because of certain uncertainty prevailing in the business market. The two factors managers think contributing to this is the complexity. Now you know, one in fact is complexity mean the number of variables. So the number of variables which can impact on the organization and how difficult they are to predict or understand. So you know, organizations are usually subjected to vast number of variables, right? Now these variables are large. It's very difficult to predict or understand all these variables because those are very complex, and those variables improve the uncertainty, right? And second one is the dynamism. Now what is dynamism mean? The rate of which the change of business's environment is changing. Now what we have developed a plan today, it may be outdated tomorrow. That is why we need to constantly review and monitor the strategic plan of the organization because of these two factors, right? Because of these two factors, we need to constantly monitor our existing strategic plan. Now, how these uncertainty factors impact our business strategy? Now, these uncertainty factors reduce our planning horizon. Now, I told you at the very beginning, usually earlier we plan for 10 years. Then it has bring down to 5 years. At present, usually we prepare strategic plan for 3-year horizon. Now this horizon 3-year also, maybe sometime people may think because of dynamism. But you can't go less than that, because we need to plan little for little future direction. Otherwise, it's a short-term plan. Strategy plan is a long-term plan. But how can you avoid this planning horizon issue? By constantly monitoring the existing strategic plan. And because of this uncertainty, nobody is going to come up with some innovative ideas. May not come with less challenge, or more challenge or less tested strategies or innovative strategies. So therefore people will try to go for conservative strategies where we have proven success. Innovation is losing. Third factor, this uncertainty creates a lot of information. Then at least you can not just information only alone, the increase of number of information, but what we need is the quality information. So then at least if you have more information, you can to some extent reduce the uncertainty. So if organization fail to keep up with these changes within the environment, can lead to a strategic drift. Now the strategic drift means moving out from our directions. So therefore remember, in order to avoid strategic drift, what we need to do, it is very important to constantly review the environment, regularly assesses the environment. Okay, so now that is why we need to consistently. So what is the purpose of environmental analysis? There are 4 purposes. We need to analyze our environment for the benefit of identify the threats we are facing, identify the opportunities, understand our strengths and identify our weaknesses, meeting stakeholder needs, what are our needs of the stakeholders, as well as assessment of competition. Right? For that, we need to do corporate appraisal. Now, different textbooks talk about this one is separately. But I'll go through CIMA approach, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants approach. Now, what is saying the short analysis, we put another name, is called corporate appraisal. We are going to appraise the entire corporate. So, it is an examination of an organization, internal and strengths and weaknesses, as well as what are the opportunities available in the environment, how we can use these opportunities for growth of the organization, and identify the threats of our external environment which present or threat to our survival. Right. Now, you know the SWOT analysis is a process where the management team identify internal and external factors that will affect the company's future performances. Now, What is strength and weaknesses are we call internal factors. What are the things your organization good at when you're compared with your competitors? Opportunities and threats, we call them as external factors which have an impact on your business operation, which influence outside factors. So therefore, SWOT analysis we categorically using as a very important tool in the strategic planning process, where you can identify what are the strengths, how can you convert the weaknesses into strength, how can we make use of strength to reduce our weaknesses, how can we use threats to opportunities. Now, I'll tell you a classic example for this is the coronavirus, COVID-19. Now, some of the bank, the COVID considered is a threat. Some of the bank may consider COVID is an opportunity for them. How is that? Now, the banks who have a very good digital environment or processing equipment, they have an opportunity in this bad environment factor. But the banks who have not ready for digitalize, gone online and not having much facilities, they feel it's a threat. Now you see, for some banks, certain threats is an opportunity. For some banks, certain threats is really a threat. Right? Now, through the SWOT analysis, so we are trying to understand all this thing. Now, the SWOT analysis, as we all be aware, is a very simple. We don't want to have a much sophisticated technical skills or training to do that. If I ask you to write what are your bank's strengths, what are your bank's weaknesses, you know. Even for yourself, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Always better to identify your own weaknesses and strengths, at least yourself. We can analyze country. What are countries, Sri Lanka's strengths and weaknesses? So it's simple. You need to study. You can do it in a very short time also, and it can be for look at it both in internal and external aspects and low cost also. Right? What are the disadvantages? The simplicity itself is a disadvantage. And SWOT is not prioritized. Now, I told you, a SWOT is a snapshot. It's like a balance sheet of an organization. Why I say it's a balance sheet? It tells you at any given point financial position of the organization. Now, it's likewise, it gives you the positions about the organization at any given time. So therefore, remember, SWOT need to done regularly. So that is why sometimes we call this a periodic SWOT analysis. Because now say you take a body checkup today, you do a lot of tests, sugar levels and all things. Okay, you take corona testing, PCR, now you have done it. You say no corona. But how can you justify another 1 week time you don't have the corona? Right? So likewise, it's a periodical testing need to be done. Identify your SWOT. Right. Now, these are the elements of SWOT. Strength and weaknesses. Those are internal factors. Opportunities and threats are external. Now we look at it. What are the analytical tools available for identify organization internal strength and weaknesses. What are the analytical tool? We may use it for identify opportunities and threats prevailing in the external environment. So therefore, we are going to discuss now through the SWOT analysis using different analytical tools to understand the organization present position. Through the internal factors, we may look at it, PSC, Bcg, and resource audit. And externally, we look at it, Pestel and Porter's 5 forces. Now, what we are going to discuss now, we are going to look at it, all these analytical tools in detail. We're going to look at it, all these analytical tools in details. Right. We'll take one by one. Now, what are the internal controllable factors of the organization? Value chain, core competencies, PSC, Bcg, and what are the external unwitely factors, best and functional factors. Right, we look at it, all these factors. Now, you know, our business environment also can be divided into 3 environment. One is internal environment. Sometimes we call task environment or micro environment. And also we call them as a general environment or more macro environment. So now we are going to discuss all these things through use of different techniques. Now, if you really look at it, internal control factors we can control to some extent. Internal environmental factors we can control. Task environment factors or the micro environmental factors can influence our decision, but not to that we can manage to some extent. But a macro environment or general environmental factors we cannot manage or you cannot control. So therefore we need to respond to those factors. So when you are preparing of our strategic plan, we need to respond to this general environment. Right, now we move in for external environmental analysis. First, we'll take the pestle factors. We take the political factors. You know, the political factors. The political arena has huge influence upon our businesses, our regulation of businesses, and spending power of consumers and other businesses. Now, say for an example, recently the government has introduced that 25% expected amount to be converted to the local rupee. Then exporters may be not happy with that. But we look at from the country's point of view, it may be good because one factor is we are losing our reserves, foreign reserves, and it's deteriorating, and we have to pay huge loan settlement. So money we have to use from reserves. Some money we can put it to the control of the exchange rate fluctuation. Otherwise, what happened? The dollar rate is going up. So one method government use to put some money to the market. So then the moment you put the money to the market or pay the dollars account or reserve to from that reserve for payment of debts, foreign debts. So our deposit of foreign reserves comes down. It comes to around 1 million, 2 million, 3 million position. So it will impact our balance sheet. Impact our balance of payment. So then the people who are sending money or sending goods opening LC, they said they will charge some extra surcharge. So our products become more costly. So in order to prevent that, government may put this restriction to convert 25% of our revenue receivable from exports for local rupees. That money in banks need to be collected and sent it to central bank for strengthen there. That is what I feel, right? So those are decisions. So these decisions need to be looked at it when you're preparation of strategic plan. Not I just give an example, right? There are many. So what is the rates government's going to charge from the bank? Now I saw recently, I mean maybe today, yesterday, there's a letter sent by GMO banks not to charge early settlement fee. Now these are the bank's income, and this money was tied up by the bank. GMO has sent a letter to president saying that requesting give instruction to bank not to charge early settlement fee. You know what you mean by early settlement fee? No, it's a one of the bank business. Bank make profit from that. Bank are the engine growth of the country's economy. If the bank's profits dry up, they cannot support the system. It will impact the financial system stability. But these are some of the things banks need to look at it. If it is okay, so incomes of the non-fee based income may comes down. Doctors also do know they will redeem the loan from one bank to another bank. Right? If the another bank say, okay, I'll give you 5%, they will redeem. We must stop all redemption. Right. These are some of the things we need to think, current issues. And what are the taxes and the political stability, some agreements between parties, trade agreements, all play an import. So political may impact our international relationships, environmental protection, consumer protections, good governance, advertising standards, all matters, competition, political factors. When we look at the economical factors, so we need to look at it. What is the interest rate prevailing? What is the inflation rate prevailing? Now, say for an example, a customer who have a saving balance of 100,000 rupees in the savings account, and after 1 year, what he's expecting? He is expecting interest plus capital. Because the money he put into the bank, intention of buying something in next year, put 100,000. But if you look at it, next year, the price of that good has gone more than what you expected from the bank interest. So the customer is facing inflation risk. So then people little bit may think to not to deposit the money with the bank. They may look at it some other alternatives. So we need to look at it all these factors. The government put some restrictions of our standing deposit funding rate, facility rate, and standing lending facility rates. They have given the banks to minimum interest rate to be charged from loan accounts. So all things may contribute to the economic factors, and also strong currency. All factors may determine per capita income, the national growth, economic growth of the country. Now the economic growth of the country has come down to negative. So activities are not taking place much, therefore it's impact our businesses and thereby our business. Right? Okay, these factors will impact our business. And we look at the social factors, how these social factors impact our businesses. How our social culture will influence the business. It may be vary from country to country. But how we are going to look at it, these factors. Right? How bank need to be looking at the social factors. Now say for an example, good example, work at home, social factor. So what are the problems you are coming up and what are the subsequent issues? Because you are working at home, there may be a subject to lot of threats, cyber stress, right? And also some scientists had argued that if you are working at home, you're losing your creativity. So the chief of Central Bank of England said, if you work at home, you may losing your innovativeness, creativity. Right? So those are some of the social factors we need to look at it. Are we having that facility available? Can people work at home? What are the advantages and disadvantages? How it impacts your lifestyle? Then you look at it, our demographic factors like population, aging population. We need to look at it. If the aging population is high, we may come up with some retirement benefit plans, annuity schemes. We need to look these factors and take advantages of them. Come up with low senior citizens products. Okay, right? So these are how social factors impact your business strategy plan. Income distribution, age, ethnicity, geography, lifestyle changes, level of education. Then another factor we need to look at is the technological factor. Of course, the bank is a very competitive tool. Banks are the heavy users of technology. So because it's also costly. Suppose your strategy plan, for an example, you think to develop a new co-banking solution. Okay, clear, right? So then this is a good time. So very important things, new technology like cloud computing, AI, right, open banking, all things are coming up. So to what extent we can use it? To what extent we can incorporate it to our strategic plan? Two things. So we need to consider all these things. Right? Then we need to look at it, how technology reduces the cost and how can we gain the competitive advantage. Through that, how can we come up with talking about the innovativeness about our bank. Then as I discussed with you, the legal. So the employment law, the data protection law, now we are in the exchange process, I mean e-business, so acceptance of electronic signature, electronic transactions, we have an act, right? So what are the other things we need to incorporate? We need to look at it, the legal environment, to strengthen our business environment. So therefore we need to take a care about the legal. Say we are not a bank, but we think about guy who involving in manufacturing of polythene. Now some suggestion came, stop polythene. So the entire strategy plan going to collapse. And also the environmental factors. Today people are talk about green financing, right? Green loans, all things we need to take into account when you're developing our strategic plan, right? So these are personal factors. I briefly explained to you some of the personal factors, how it impact your business. So therefore, personal can be considered as frequently used and commonly used strategic tool to analyze your external environment, right? By not only just to analyze your personal factors, we need to understand how it facilitate to improve or positively and negatively impact your business. Right? So that's a very important tool. So this tool will be discussing over and over again. But we need to look at it, this fiscal analysis, in a more different angle. Okay, next. Then we need to look at it. And also mind you, Pestel factors or Pestel analysis will support your SWOT analysis. Right? Okay. Then we are going to discuss about another important analytical tool, that is what you call Porter's 5 poses. The guy who talk about this, we understand as Michael Porter. He basically identified 5 poses. What are the 5 poses he's identified? Your own competitor. Now take for an example, bank. One bank, say Sampath Bank or one bank in Sri Lanka as a common. What are the main force faced by a bank? Rivalry among existing firms. That means the competitions you are coming for other similar banks, like say for example Bank of Ceylon. Within you have competition from People's Bank, Commercial Bank, Sampath Bank, and People's Bank. It's a rivalry among existing firms. right? Whatever you do, they try to copy or they try to damage your strategy. Then we look at it, some threat of new entrants. There will be new banks can come to Sri Lankan banking fraternity. Like recently, recently this Bank of China came, Kyrgyz Bank came. There are maybe a possibility of coming some international banks. Think about China's construction bank. Not the one, is the leading world bank in Sri Lanka, in China. If they want to come, it's a big threat to commercial bank. All commercial bank in Sri Lanka. They can say, if you're importing from anything from China, you need to open a sea from us. They have so power. Then what is the rationale behind for that? We are facing high competition. So rivalry among firms, we need to analyze. Then the second, threat of new entrants we discuss. And the third can be from the bottom, threat of substitute. The product or services are offering by the same similar products, maybe little alternative products. Big challenge is coming from fintech companies. So all banks are facing a problem from fintech companies. They work cost effectively. They work tirelessly for 24 hours for customer services, where banks cannot do. Then bargaining power of customers, buyers. Now buyers are educated now, more sophisticated, more techno-savvy, so demanding. So we cannot have a good margin. We must have a thin margin to sell our products to them. Now customer can sit in the both sides of this bargaining power. Right? Remember, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers. Customers can sit in the both sides. How? Some customers are loan customers. Some customers are deposit customers. If deposit customers put the money into the bank, only bank can give loans to the other side of the customers. So all these factors may contributing to the profitability of the bank. So therefore, we need to analyze all these forces factors, how these forces factors impact your business. Now I'll take an example for dialogue. Example. Now we put a dialogue as a company. I need to analyze the Michael Porter's, how it impacts the dialogue with the help of Michael Porter's analysis. Then we identify rivalry among existing firms. So who are the rival people? Mobitel, maybe Hutch, Airtel, right? The dialogue one time have some anxious moment, because if they got to know that Airtel going to come to the Sri Lankan mobile market. Now, Airtel mean a number one telecommunication provider or mobile provider in India, and that mobile company is associated with the brand ambassador with Shah Rukh Khan. So Shah Rukh Khan is very famous guy in Sri Lanka as well. So the dialogue had a problem. They concentrating their strategies to reduce the impact of their new entrants from Airtel. But ultimately, to my knowledge, the dialogue handled very well on that. And also, dialogue need to look at it. What are the other substitutes they come across? Like land phones, chats, and some computer, other mode of communication other than the other than the normal routing attributes of the mobile providers. So they need to look at it, the bargaining power of suppliers who provide the new telephones, new models. Can my organization as a service provider can have all these things to build up to your phones? So we need to look at it. So other guy is the customer. Now customers are educated also today, and they know what are the features to be incorporated to be in the phone and all things, right? I give you an example for dialogue. Now you can understand how Porter's five forces impact your strategic planning process analysis, right? It's a very famous one. So threat of new entrants. Then how can you make it entry barrier to new people to come into your bank? How you may use your power of buyers. You have a large clientele. You do a lot of cross-selling for that. And you have a good supplier source agreement with them. You have a customers who deposit continuously. You have a contractual arrangements of deposits or enter into the agreement with companies to send their salaries to the banks. So many things. And based on that, they give loans. You do a lot of analysis for that. And what are substitutes other than these loans? How bank going to run business? Sound issues. Right? Okay. So then having analyzing the Michael Porter's five forces strategy, then we make a decision. What makes an industry or less attractive? How can you make it attractive? How make it difficult to enter into? Only limited rivalry. Make it buyers are relatively weak. So these factors impact your credibility. Right? Okay. Now we look at it. What are the industry you can easily enter into? Other than the banking. Maybe insurance. Go for financial conglomerate. Right? So all factors may look at it when you develop your strategic plan. Right? Important thing. Then we are going to discuss another important theory. So that theory is called, again, the Michael Porter, called the diamond theory. So you look at it, your organization from the look at it from the international perspective. right? Michael Porter look at it, your industry from the international point. He has identified 5 factors or 6 factors. Now let's look at it. Now why certain countries doing better, right? First one, called factor endowments. Now this is a nation position in factors of production such as skill, labor, natural resources, infrastructure necessary to compete in the given industry. Now think about the Indian banking industry and the Sri Lankan banking industry. Now, of course, if really look at it, skill labor, knowledge about the IT, about the banking industry is concerned, India is better than us. The natural resources, another factor we need to consider. One factor is India is having huge area. We small area. Right? Some factors when you look at it. Some countries having natural gases. So that is they are good at something. So we cannot fight with Saudi. Why? Because their natural resource are oil. We don't have. So we need to look at it factor endowments. Likewise, what are the basic factors? Then the demand condition. What are the home demand and sophistication for the industry's product life cycle? Now I want to tell you the story. Now, if you want to buy something from Japan within the country, they are very quality products. Right? In the demand condition for home demand, for home product is very strong. So the customers or the organizations are keep on developing new product and come up with better products to supply the local. That you create the innovativeness about your employees and your organization. That is why your output is become more and more good. And also the relating to the supporting industries. Right? So how we become an internationally competitive, our supporting industry is not good. Our supply industry is not good. We need to have a good materials, raw materials to build garments. If we don't have the garment, another issue we face. Then a firm strategy and structure the rivalry. Now, to what extent the companies of Sri Lanka are nature of domestic rivalry, whether it's a competition. In Sri Lanka, we have something, or we have some monopoly. Now, Michael Porter speaks of these 4 attributes. What are the things they talk about? Demand condition, factor endowment, on-firm strategy, and supporting industry. So, he said that, he argues that firms are most likely to be succeed in industries or industry segments where the demand is more favorable. Right? So he said These factors are reinforcing other factors. So therefore, the four attributes in very short are necessarily and sufficient giving nations competitive advantage in international business. And this is another area we look at it. We not look at it on the local, we look at the strategy. How my banks become industrial, become competitive in the international business. One factor is natural resources, that is what we call factor endowment. How the demand local, that is why India having a good demand, local demand. One of the factor endowment is their land, related supportive industries. And the strategy. So all factors will contributing to consider your capabilities. Right, now we look at it. What are the internal controllable factors of the organization? Now earlier we discussed what are the external factors will bring opportunities and threats. We have identified few techniques. Few techniques are Pestel analysis, Michael Porter's 5 forces analysis, and Porter's diamond theory, local as well as industry. Now we look at it. What are the internal controllable factors impact your present position of the organization? Then mind you, what we are discussing. Now sometimes midway we forget what we are discussing. Answering the question number 2. At the very day, first day we discussed what is strategic planning. I explained to you. Strategic plan is all about fulfilling, answering 3 questions, fundamental questions. What are these fundamental questions? Where am my organization now? Where are my organizations going to be? How to go to that destination? How you know whether we have reached that destination? 4 questions. Strategic planning, try to answer these 4 questions. Last week, the entire week, entire day we allocated for identify where are you going to be. Thereof we discuss about vision, values, goals, objectives. This is where we are going to be. Vision tells you the direction. Missions tells you what to do. Goals, what are the things we need to achieve. Objectives, we talk about how we are going to achieve all these things. So that's what we have learned last time. Answer the fundamental question of where are we going to be. Second question, where are we now? In order to go to that destination, we must identify what is my present place. Where am I? Where are we now? Right? For that, we use certain techniques to analyze the internal, external, environmental factors. We carry out 3 types of tests. Pestel analysis, Michael Porter's 5 forces analysis, and this what you call diamond theory. Right? Now we are going to look at it. The internal factors. What are the strengths and weaknesses we are having, which may be facilitate or which may be hindered achievement of our objectives? For that, we may going to look at it, do some internal analysis. It's also a crucial part of developing a strategy. It helps organizations to identify what's capable of, what are our skills, what are our assets, what are our processes. So you need to understand all these factors before we apply or before we develop our strategies. For that, we need to analyze. We need to analyze our product portfolio in details. For that, we may use 2 techniques. One is BCG techniques, other one is a PLC techniques. Simple as that, right? How we use PLC, you know, the product life cycle, right? It's go like this, like human being. Every product is have a life cycle. The length of the product cycle may be vary. Now, say for an example, a fashion product. So lifespan is very short. But there are, you see some products like Unilever marketing, Sunlight. Still there. Product is going through a life cycle. Like we. What is product development? We develop within that product in the office or in the factory. It's like an embryonic stage of mothers. It's an embryonic stage. Kalalavati. It's not launched to the market. Give birth, baby to the big give birth, it's become introduction. Introduced to the market. So at the introduction stage, it go up to sales, higher sales, and it's decline. Accordingly, based on your sales, the deposit curves are going parallelly. If your sales are not good, your profits also impacted. So therefore, we need to understand the stages of product life cycle in your product portfolio. First, if you don't have any product, new products, or maybe modify your existing product, very difficult to survive. Because you need to consider, because people needs and wants are changing, people become more sophisticated, become more technically oriented, they become more techno savvy. So we need to change our products as well as services. So you can identify new developments of services or products through research or ask from the experts. Right? There are some features about the introduction stage. To show the sales are not up to that level, but it's increasing. Right? But cost little high, because new product development is a costly exercise, remember. Profits, not much. So at the introduction stage, you won't expect big sales. So then what is your marketing objective should be? To create a particular product more aware about among the public. We have a housing loan scheme where interest is so much, where all things. But we need to communicate all these things to our customers. Then we move into the growth stage, the next level, where sales are taking, business are growing. So we need to look at it, certain factors. The sales are growing, cost comes down because of more number of sales. Profits also comes slowly. And what is your marketing objective? Try to maximize your market share. You have ample opportunity to go up the ladder. So you need to understand the different stage of your product life cycle. That's the most important stage of your product life cycle is the maturity stage. And during that time, your peak sales, your high profits, low cost for customer. You need to differentiate from your product from your competitor. Otherwise, what happens? If you have not done all these things, product comes down because the next stage is the decline stage. We want to extend that maturity stage maximum as possible. For that, banks can do a lot of innovative things. Now, example is the product extension. Now, say I talked to you earlier the sunlight. Now, see from sunlight from the day one, it is there. Can remember sunlight came with the yellow form, and then they said Sudu sunlight, then color parting, sunlight, then Sudu parting with different sizes, but it's the same product. Nilmanil, Samam picture, Rosa picture now, Sakura. Even the smell they change. Understood? So we need to extend our product. That is why banks also do things like that. Introducing, relaunch the housing loan, or maybe come up with new products, new credit product, or maybe liability product or asset product. Now you see the some Lifebuoy also. I don't know if you can remember the Lifebuoy came as a sports. So now it's changing to germ killer, given situation. Germ killer, right? How they position in the market, right? That we need to do at the product at the maturity stage. Otherwise, product's going to die. So you need to take a lot of actions, a lot of plans on this. For that, we need to understand your product life cycle portfolio. Not only one, right? Okay, now what is product portfolio mean? Product and services available in your bank to sell it to customers. That is product portfolio. Next one. The decline stage, what happened? Right. Next concept or the next tool we have to analyze your portfolio, we call BCG, Boston Consultancy Group. Actually, this is a tool for determining strategy and to base upon the premise that relative market share and the market growth. They take two axes. One is the market share, other one is the market growth. Right? Now I will tell you example. Now banks are very much interesting about the CASA percentage. What is CASA? Capital asset, a capital account and a savings account. Now these days, banks CASA ratio is increasing. Why is that increasing? Why CASA rates are increasing these days? Because of low differences between FD as well as the normal savings. The moment the gap is increasing, people just moving from saving to FD. So therefore, usually banks prefer to have a high CASA ratio. Now all banks is having around 35 odds. So that's a very healthy percentage. So more number of current account and savings account mean what? Low cost of capital. Why we won't pay any cents to current account holders? And even for savings, you pay less than FD. Right. So then you have a huge markup. Right? So therefore you are trying to improve your CASA. Now, how can you improve your CASA? But you need to analyze your product portfolio. Now for that, the tool suggested by Boston Consultancy Group, we call them as Bcg Matrix. And in fact, it was developed in 1968. Right? Still, banks are using, but during those days, we don't have much sophisticated IT support or computer, IT or calculation support. But now we have a lot of software packages to analyze all these things. So they have identified 4 types of quadrants here based on the relative market share and the market growth. Your entire product portfolio can be put into these 4 slots. One is question mark, what is stars, what is cash cow, and what is stocks. Now, what do you mean by a cash cow? Banks, we can consider cash cow as specifically current account. Because having a current account, what we enjoy as bankers, we are giving OD facility. For that we charge. We are issuing a checkbooks and other facilities, even for debit cards, things like that. For that we also charge from customer. Right? For checkbooks, for ODs. But for whose money? Their money we do the same thing. That's a banking practices, but that's a different story. Right? So therefore we like to have a more number of current accounts holders in our bank portfolio, customer bank portfolio. Why? So we earn a lot of profits from that. Then these are having usually high market growth rates as well as high market share. Then the profits during the cash flow, you see, very much high. Right. So we move into the next point about the stars. Stars products we can make, sometimes we can consider as a savings product, or sometimes some credit products. Like pawning now these days, pawning interest rates come down even for credit products like credit cards, right? So they are also earning much profit than less than cash flows. So you need to understand what are your products in your portfolio you can consider as the stars. You need to understand. And also you need to understand in your product portfolio, what are the products comes under the question mark? What do you mean by a question mark product? Whether you don't know whether you earn more profits or may not benefit. right? Certain products in your product portfolio, you need to invest money to convert them to stars, or otherwise can come to dogs, right? These are question marks. So you identify your product, but then there are some products in your portfolio which not give you enough profits, enough markup, but as far as is there, we just leave it. Now, according to the customer charter, you cannot eliminate products. You need to compensate accordingly. So therefore, banks are not open new accounts, but may maintain with their existing all products, right? Or some products are more sentimental product. That is another reason why they maintain. Now, through this BCG matrix, what we are trying to gain? What are the products we need to emphasize? What are the products we need to develop? We get an idea. Now, if you apply this BCG matrix into PSC, right? So, cash cow comes under maturity stage. Stars make and comes under growth stage. Then the dog stage comes the decline stage. Where comes the question mark or problem like sometimes people are talking? Whether it is a growth stage or the decline stage. We cannot say exactly. Sometimes they are the introductory stage, can become stars or can become improve the growth and then become maturity stage. Come to the maturity stage, but not sure. It may go down to decline stage. So therefore, we need to understand, we need to monitor, we need to come up with strategies, address these products as well. So therefore, you noted that the strategic planning is not so simple and easy thing. You need to analyze so many things. The more you analyze, you can develop a good plan, but taking more time to develop also useless. That you need to remember. Right? I explained about the cash cows, problem childs, and dogs and its implication. Right. Now, we are still in the internal analysis. Now we look at it, the resource audit. Whether we are using our resources correctly. Right? So it's really important. So resource audit identify the resources that are available to an organization to seek to start, identify the competencies. Now, what is competency? Competency we will discuss later on. Now, before that, we'll have some idea about what is resources. The resources are many types. You can divide, you can define resources into many areas. It should be financial resources, physical, operational resources, human, organization, like that. Oh, and money management and niche like this, you can categorize, you can divide it, resources into many types. Then we call the VRIN approach or framework of resources. Now, what is VRIN framework of resources? That's the letter words comes: valuable, rare, inimitable, imitable bad, ඒ වගේම copy කරන්න බෑ and non-substitutable. ආදේශ කරන්න බෑ. That is Vrin. So we need to look at it, our competitive advantage through this Vrin approach. Let's look at it. What is is valuable? So our capabilities are of value. So we always add value to the customers. provide value to the customers. And mind you, value, why people are buying. So you know the CVP. What is CVP stand for? Customer Value Proposition. CVP explain why customers are buying your products than your competitors' product. Because they give you high value to your product and services. The value can be considered in different ways. One value is an economic value. That will give you monetary benefits to you. Other fact is an emotional value. That of course you cannot touch and see, but you have a monetary value, emotional value. So that is why sometimes the products, passbooks, products are developed in a different ways. And then we have some material value. We are not just offering savings account, we offering a bundle of product services. So these are the value aspects. Customers today buy values, not the products. Yeah. Right? To what extent your resources are using to add value to your product. Next one, the REA. Difficult transferability, long-term sustainability and flexibility of core entities. So your product and source are very rare. Then inability to copy it. Very difficult to copy your product. Copy your staff, your culture, your internal capabilities, right? Your innovative capabilities. So those are some of the competencies we look at it. Right? The resources what we have, remember the competence, what we do well. Right? Remember that. So therefore resources are needed to undertake a strategy. They will not ensure its ultimate success, but for that resources will need to be combined together with its competencies. So what do you mean by a competency? Competency means your knowledge, your attitudes, your attributes, your skills and things like that. If you are lacking in some areas, that is why sometimes when we discuss about some of the pitfalls of strategic planning, people say we don't want to have a strategic plan, we can have old method of doing the business. Why? One factor, they may not aware about what is strategic planning, or they may not have the competencies to develop the strategic plan. So how can you fulfill? There is a competency gap. We need to map your competency. How can you do? Ask your employees to follow programs like this, to know about your business. What is strategic planning all about? Right? So it's a very important area, strategic planning. Even for you go for degree in University of Jawaharlal, strategic management will teach you only in the final year, not in between. Right? Okay. So strategic planning today play an important role in businesses. When we look at another aspect is what you call the value chain. It's called the value chain. Right? What is value chain? Right? Value chain means how your entire organization process is taking place. Now, this also developed by famous guy, Porter, and he said, Any organization is having two type of activities, five type of activities. What are these? Is like this, right? Five type of activities here. Right. You take inbound logistic, you take the raw materials, you converted the raw materials output, and you did some marketing and sales and provide some services, and product comes out, having a keeping the margin. And this is primary activities of any organization. This is primary activity of any organization. Now you look at inbound logistic. So you are receiving, handling, storing inputs to production to start. So that is inbound logistic. So the operation mean the next activity we call converting those resources into inputs, resource inputs into a final product. Right? Like this. These are primary activities any organization is carrying. Then we look at the outbound logistics mean storing the product, the final product for its distribution or packaging, testing or whatever. Then you need to do marketing and sales to inform customers about the products, persuade them to buy, things like that. And then sometimes we need some after sales services once we give to the customer. Some products like AC, right? We need to give some after sales services. Now this is how the business activities is taking place. Margin mean, of course, is some sort of a profit you're keeping. So this is the primary activities mean basically the core functions of an organization. Any organization will take place these things. And in order to fulfill these primary functions or primary activities, there are some other organizations, places we have support this activity. How can you support this activity? Say first one, inbound logistics. How they support? Procurement. We need to acquire resources, raw material at the correct time, at the correct quantity, correct quality. So then we look at it, the next stage, operations. We're converting resource input into the final product. So that maybe we need some technological development. We need some new product design, improving the processors, resources utilization. Right? Then in order to do that, we need people. We need training for them. That is supported by human resource management. Then the last one is the infrastructure. So infrastructure, we need all these things. Planning, finance, quality control, right? All are important at the firm infrastructure. So we call them as, these are supporting activities which facilitate the primary activities. This is the value chain. Now this value chain, now if you think about the margin, what is margin is talk about? Is the excess of customer is perceived, prepared to pay over the cost to the firm of operating resources in. Right? We need to create the value, and that is value. Okay, now let's look at it. Now, why is import? Why we need to study the value chain analysis? Now, what we do, we analyze all stages of your primary activity and look at it, how we can improve each and single primary activity. And we look at it how our supportive activities can be strengthened and thereby how can we give to support the primary activity, right? So look at it, the primary activity and the supportive activities have facilitate the value chain. What through the value chain we try to do? We take individual activity and see whether how can we improve all these activities. Okay, so that is why we do value chain analysis as internal analytical tool. Now, what is again we are talking about? What we are talking about? Finding out what is my present organization situation. So that we did external and internal analysis. Now, external analysis, we discuss some techniques. And now we are learning about internal analysis. What are the techniques we use? Then there may be a both sometimes be benefited by handling our stakeholders. A lot of organizations may not use to analyze our stakeholders. Now, who are our stakeholders? Those are the group of people who has an interest about our organization. So we need to understand their importance, their power to achieve our organization objective. So what are their interests? Some are internal customers, some are external customers, or some are in between like this, right? There are some customers called internal customers. There are some connected stakeholders. Now those are shareholders, right? So we identify three types of stakeholders. Now all the stakeholders have some sort of interest about the organization. We need to understand their level of value, their level of importance to banks. Now, you know this internal stakeholders are, we commonly call them as our employees and managers and directors. And what they expecting? They're expecting a pay, working conditions, job security. What directors and managers are expecting? Salary, bonus, like that, job security. Then we have another type of stakeholder, connected stakeholder, we call them as shareholders. So what they are expecting? Dividends and capital growth at the continuation of the business. That is what shareholders expecting. Then what is customers expecting? We discuss value for money. How much they pay, in return they need more value. As well as your suppliers. What are they expecting? So what they expecting? Basically to pay their payment promptly. And what finance providers are expecting? Repayment of the finance. The loan taken by us, we need to pay quick. Right? So what is community at large? So three things. Your business is not be badly impacted the general public. So you see there are some pressure groups. Who are pressure groups? The people who having some sort of a put some extra pressure for organization, like companies like Oxfam. Those are some companies. Oxfam, right? Then government. So they're expecting some taxes, profit sharing, things like that, and also trade union. We have a different types of stakeholders. Therefore, also we remember we have a different type of stakeholders as well as they have a different expectation. Then there may be definitely a conflict between these expectations. Definitely you have a. So for that, in order to address this stakeholder conflicts, we need to identify who are good. I mean, the conflicts has come from, many sources because of wages, bonuses. Customers are concerned about the quality, general public concerned about the environmental issues, and so mergers, managers, shareholders are having a conflict with about the salary as well as some takeovers and merging. Like, right? So there were a lot of conflicts. Now, in this event of conflict between stakeholders, so organization will need to decide what type of stakeholder may be important for you as far as strategy planning is concerned. Now, in order to identify, right, in order to identify the different type of stakeholders, so we have another technique called power interest matrix that was developed by Mendeley. So therefore, we call them as Mendeley's power interest matrix. Now, what is power interest matrix developed by Mendeley talk about? It's a model like quadrant, like BCG. It can be used to prioritize stakeholders and decide how to deal with each of them based on their power, based on the interest about the organization. We categorize them into 4 slots based on their power and based on the interest. We categorize those stakeholders into 4 quadrants. What are these 4 quadrants? We call them as minimal effect, keep informed, keep satisfied, keep players. Key players. Now, what this Mendeley matrix talk about? We put our stakeholders into 4 groups. It's like what we have learned BCG matrix. Under BCG matrix, what we have done? Under BCG matrix, we have put products into 4 groups. Which products give high profits? Which products we need to manage? Likewise, Mendeley's power interest matrix, what we try to do, we try to put our stakeholders into 4 slots and then try to pay more attention for those stakeholders. Now, who are minimal efforts stakeholders? Who are key players or key stakeholders like that? Okay, so the minimal efforts mean, so that means So their power is less, they can impact the business, and also the interest also not much. Then, but they are still a stakeholder, but we may not much concentrate on that. Then we keep informed a big group where interest is high, but power is less. But better to always keep informed them what is happening. Get them involved into some activity. This is how we can keep quiet. Then you have a keep satisfied. Right? Now it's like this. Keep satisfied mean what is their interest is low but they are high powered. So therefore we need to satisfy them. Groups, stakeholders coming into that category. We need to satisfy always, otherwise they may have some problem. The last one, where interest also high, power also high, especially our regulator. Why you say? Because these have an interest about the strategy, right? Remember, because this is the most influential stakeholder in the strategy planning process. So therefore, their participation in the planning process is a vital management. So we may try to bring him into the implementation process, right? So thereby, you need to understand power matrix, interest matrix, and the stake. Okay, let me now, we will do some example to understand proper this power matrix, interest matrix. Now, you see the ABC is a forestry business, if I quoted from SIMA case. ABC is a forestry business which leases several large woodlands from the central government of countryside. It currently employs around 2,000 members of staff across the country. Now, I'm talking about the company who involving in forestry business. So you have a large portion of lands from the central province, central government of country, is it? It's having around 2,000 employees across the country. ABC is the name of the supplier. He supplies over 300 small businesses with the wood cross country. They are the forest provider. However, recently, its profitability has been poor and it has been struggling to pay any dividends. Now, the results for business results are not so good. So therefore, their profits are less. Now, stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders of the organization? They has angered the company's three stakeholders, which have around 20% of AB's share capital. The remainder is owned by the public, with no one investor owning more than 1% of the total share capital. So this is how their stakeholder composition. One person is having 20% of share, but majority of them are other share public, not having less than 1%, so they are not much bothered. Now there are three shareholders having the 20% highest share as far as the total deposit, total operating capital is concerned. So three main shareholders have asked the board of directors to consider making 200 employees redundant. Now you see why we have around 2,000 members of the staff who provide the put to the small sector business people around 300 people, but due to some problem, so the profits has come down. Therefore, three main shareholders of the ABC not in a position to pay their dividends and agree. All these three shareholders, and they have suggested the board of directors and the management of the ABC company to deduct or redundant 200 employees from the existing staff of 2,000 people. And unfortunately, the employees are not heavily unionized. They don't have a much stronger union form in the company. Right? Now the question is asking, state and explain the appropriate strategy for Mendel's matrix for each of the following stakeholders. Now, in your organization, we have ABC customers. Who are our ABC customers? 300 small businesses. Right? Who are our major shareholders? We have 3 people with having 20% of share capital. All others less than 1%. Then you have the employees. Employees is one of our stakeholders. It's around 200 employees. Sorry, 2,000 employees. But they are not much unionized. Then we have a country. Is one of our stakeholder because their woodland only we are cutting. So we have 4 parties, 4 stakeholders. Now the question is telling, identify a strategy based on Mendel's theory. Right? We try to understand that. I think you understood the concept. Right? Now let's look at it. What do you think about the ABC customers? Which quadrant you are going to put them? ABC shareholders? Which quadrant you are going to put them from this? So now the question is asking, you have identified 4 types of stakeholders in a business organization. They are given some situation. You are asked to put them into this slot based on their importance, based on their power and interest. Then you can sort it out a lot of issues. Right? Let's look at it now. So, minimal efforts where the power and interest both are low. So that means if you really look at it here, this minimal effort. So therefore your power is low, interest is low. So who are the people you can put it there? So ABC customers. So ABC customers are like to have a little interest in their in the staffing of their suppliers, as long as it does not affect the services or product they receive. Right? Okay, why? Because because they are not bothered about. So we don't want to talk on that. As far as now, the issue here asks him to reduce 200 people. ABC customers are not bothered as far as they are getting the goods. So there we can consider minimal effects. Then key players were high P and high I. That means high power as well. Now, high P players are the three main shareholders because they are because of higher rights. Now you identify the key players, right? Because they are the people who said to reduct 200 people. Then keep informed. Because of employees are not heavily unionized, so they have a little corrective power. But they will be highly interested as many as of their jobs are risk. So their power is less, but they are very high interest about the organization. Right. Then last one is where the high power but low interest. That's the government of country. Would have a significant power over ABC because they are the people who give the lands. If it is choose to exercise it as forecast that ABC leases, how as long as ABC obeys the law, it is unlikely to take an active interest on the reduction of its work. They are not bothered about the workforce. Right? Now, what is this example talk about? Which I explained to you to give some foot how to identify your stakeholders based on their prominence, based on their interest, and based on their power. Then, having those are four main stakeholders in your organization to carry the business. If something happened in some area, say if they are unionized, implementation of your strategic plan badly going to get affected. That is why we need to understand stakeholders and put them into different order based on their power and interest, and you can take some decision. So here, the most significant powerful group is the three shareholders, because they are the people who invested the money. Right. So this will give you some. Right. The next one we'll talk about the competitor analysis. Right? How the competitor analysis impact your businesses. Now we need to understand different type of competitors. We need to understand the different type of competitors. We don't want to analyze all the competitors. Who is your closest competitor? Now say for example, commercial bank. They may not need to look at it what the Standard Chartered Bank is doing or HSBC doing in Sri Lanka. But the Commercial Bank of Sri Lanka maybe look at it what HNB, Sampath, Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank is doing. Right? So you need to understand that. So therefore, the level of competitors can come from different ways. And Kotler has identified 4 types of competitors. Competitors who provide similar products. But some industry competitors, like British Airways and Singapore Airways, in the industry they are competitive. Right? like from competitors. So companies like provide same satisfaction needs of the customers. Generic competitors like pharmaceutical and things like. So you need to understand the different type of company just for your understanding. And also we need to respond to your competitor. So if the laid back competitor does not respond to competitive moves. The selective competitor we select a particular competitor and attacks. Tiger competitors or tiger competitor always respond and address to any threat. So stochastic competitor so you cannot predict. So likewise, so competitive responses are very different. I just give you for understanding. So therefore, in that case, we have competitor types, direct competition. There may be indirect competition, like now, say for an example, take the banks. What are the indirect competition for banks? Maybe insurance companies, maybe share stock market. There may be a potential competition and also latent competition. The potential competition is sometimes we call them as the fintech companies. There are some latent competition. That means you won't show, but there may be a competition in the future. Cannot see, but there is a. We are not considered, ignore them, but they one day is become big competitions to you, right? Okay, so now the time pass, so we will remain the last part of this gap analysis for next week, and next week we are going to study the third answer into the third question. What is the third question we are going to answer? We are going to answer how to be there. We learn now where are we now, where we want to be, and now we are going to answer how to be there. Okay? Right. So with this small thing, we close today, and we try to continue from. Right. Okay. We'll see you all next.